The broken ship and the choice the asteroid field around Kepler-7 mining station glittered with ice crystals and metal fragments. A graveyard of ships that had tried to navigate the treacherous debris field without proper guidance. Vex Korath had learned to read these patterns over 15 years of salvage work. His 4 crystalline arms moved with practiced precision across the scanner controls of his small vessel. The Shard Runner, as he searched for anything valuable among the wreckage, the Zephyrian's compound eyes caught movement in the distance. A ship, tumbling end over end, venting atmosphere and sparking with electrical fires. It was sleek, unfamiliar, and definitely not one of the usual merchant vessels that frequented this sector. As Vex adjusted his scanners, his thorax vibrated with concern. The ship's design was human. Humans didn't come to this part of space. The Kepler-7 sector sat in disputed territory, claimed by the brutal hegemony, but populated mostly by independent traders, miners, and outcasts who preferred to avoid galactic politics. For a human ship to be here meant either desperation or something much more dangerous. Vex's ship intercepted the distress beacon automatically. The signal was weak, failing, but it carried a standard emergency code. Someone aboard that vessel was still alive. His people, the Zephyrians, had a saying, "Crystal grows only where light touches it." It meant that good things happened only when someone chose to make them happen. But it also meant taking risks. The smart choice would be to report the wreckage to the station authorities and let them handle it. Humans were dangerous. Everyone knew that. They fought wars across half the galaxy, made enemies easily, and had technology that could level planets. Getting involved with human affairs was asking for trouble. But as Vex watched the failing ship spin through space, he noticed something that made his decision for him. Small pieces of debris were breaking away from the hull, but they weren't random. They formed a pattern, an old spacer's code that meant injured aboard, immediate assistance required. Someone was still conscious enough to create that signal, still fighting to survive. Vex had lost his own family to hegemony raiders 12 years ago. His mate and their young clutch had been aboard a transport that was attacked for its cargo of rare minerals. No one had come to help them. No one had even tried. The memory of that loss still made his exoskeleton ache with phantom pain. He couldn't leave someone else to die the same way. The Shard Runner accelerated toward the damaged vessel, its small engine straining against the gravitational chaos of the asteroid field. As Vex drew closer, he could see the extent of the damage. The ship's entire port side was torn open, and scorch marks suggested weapons fire. This hadn't been an accident. Someone had attacked this vessel deliberately. Docking with a tumbling, damaged ship was one of the most dangerous maneuvers in space. Vex had to match the rotation, seal his ship's airlock to a compromised hull, and hope the connection would hold long enough to get inside. His 4 arms worked the controls with careful precision, each movement calculated to avoid disaster. The docking clamps engaged with a sound like breaking crystal. Vex quickly donned his emergency suit and moved to the airlock. The atmosphere. Readings from the human ship were bad, but not fatal. Whoever was inside still had maybe an hour of breathable air left. The airlock cycled, and Vex stepped into a corridor filled with smoke and floating debris. Emergency lighting cast everything in harsh red shadows. The artificial gravity was failing, making movement difficult. He followed the trail of damage toward what looked like the ship's bridge. That's where he found her. The human woman was trapped beneath a fallen support beam, her left leg clearly broken, and her face pale from blood loss. But her eyes were alert, focused, and when she saw Vex approaching, she didn't show fear. Instead, she spoke in clear, accented galactic standard. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure the signal got through." Her voice was steady, despite the pain she must have been feeling. Vex knelt beside her, his compound eyes taking in the extent of her injuries. The beam was heavy, but his forearms could lift it if he was careful. What happened here? Who attacked you? Hegemony patrol vessels. 3 of them? She winced as Vex began working to free her. They came out of nowhere. No warnings, no demands. Just started shooting. This made Vex pause. The hegemony was brutal, but they usually had reasons for their attacks. They were expanding their territory. Yes, but they typically targeted military vessels or valuable cargo shipments. A single human ship in disputed space shouldn't have been worth their attention. What's your name? Vex asked as he positioned himself to lift the beam. Captain Sarah. Chun, Earth Exploration Course. She managed a weak smile. And you're Zephyrian. I recognize the exoskeleton structure. Thank you for taking this risk. Vex lifted the beam with 2 arms, while using his other 2 to carefully extract Sarah from beneath it. She bit back a cry of pain, but didn't make any other sound. Tough, he thought. Humans were supposed to be resilient, but seeing it firsthand was different. Can you walk? He asked. Sarah tried to put weight on her injured leg and immediately went pale. Not well, but I can manage if you help. Getting her back to his ship took precious minutes they didn't have. The human vessel was breaking apart around them, systems failing one by one. By the time they reached the Shard Runner, Sarah was unconscious. From pain and blood loss, Vex sealed the airlocks and immediately took his ship away from the wreckage. Just in time, the human vessel's reactor finally gave out, turning the elegant ship into expanding plasma and metal fragments. In his small medical bay, Vex did what he could for Sarah's injuries. Zephyrian medical knowledge was different from human physiology, but trauma was trauma. He stabilized her leg, stopped the bleeding, and connected her to his ship's life support systems. As Sarah slept, Vex sat in his pilot's chair and considered what he had done. He had saved a human military officer in disputed space. That alone would make the hegemony consider him an enemy. But more than that, he had gotten involved in something much larger than a simple rescue. Captain Sarah Chun wasn't just any human. The Earth Exploration Corps was the diplomatic arm of human space operations. She had been on some kind of mission when the hegemony attacked her. That meant this incident could easily spark a larger conflict. Vex's scanner chimed softly. Multiple ships were approaching the wreckage site. Hegemony vessels arriving to confirm their kill. Vex powered down his ship's main systems and drifted behind a large asteroid, hoping to avoid detection. Through his viewports, he watched as 3 hegemony destroyers methodically scanned the debris field. They were being thorough, looking for survivors or salvageable technology. If they found any trace that Sarah had been rescued, they would hunt Vex across the galaxy. One of the destroyers launched small probe craft that began collecting pieces of the wreckage. Vex realized they were trying to reconstruct what had happened, to see if their target had actually been eliminated. This level of attention meant Sarah's mission had been extremely important to someone. After 2 hours, the hegemony vessels departed, apparently satisfied that no one had survived the attack. Vex waited another hour before powering up his ship and heading back toward Kepler 7 station. Sarah woke up as they approached the station's docking ring. Her first words were, "Did anyone else make it?" Vex shook his head gently. "I'm sorry. You were the only survivor." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, processing the loss. When she opened them again, there was something hard in her expression that hadn't been there before. "Vex, I need to ask you for another favor. I need to send a message. To your people?" "Yes. What happened here isn't random. The hegemony knew exactly where to find me, knew what ship I was flying. Someone fed them information about a classified diplomatic mission." Sarah struggled to sit up. "My crew died because of a betrayal, and the mission they died for is still critical to preventing a war." Vex helped her into a more comfortable position. "What kind of mission?" Sarah looked at him carefully, as if weighing whether to trust him with sensitive information. Finally, she spoke. I was carrying a proposal for a mutual defense agreement between Earth and the free worlds in this sector. The hegemony is planning to expand their territory, and we wanted to offer an alternative to conquest. And now? Now they think they've stopped it, but they don't know about you. Sarah's eyes met his compound gaze. Vex, you didn't just save my life. You might have saved dozens of worlds from being enslaved. The weight of this responsibility settled on Vex like a physical burden. He had thought he was simply rescuing someone in distress. Instead, he had become part of the struggle that could reshape the entire sector. What do you need? He asked. Sarah smiled, and for the first time since he'd found her, it reached her eyes. Access to a long-range communications array. And then we wait to see if humanity keeps its promises. As the Shard Runner docked at Kepler 7 station, neither Vex nor Sarah could have imagined how quickly and dramatically their galaxy was about to change. The message Sarah would send would travel faster than light across human space, carrying news of an attack, a rescue, and a debt that demanded payment. And humanity, as Sarah well knew, always paid its debts. Asterisk. The signal and the response. The communications array on Kepler 7 station was old, patched together from salvaged parts, and held together by hope and creative engineering. But it was powerful enough to punch a signal through the quantum phone, too. The nearest Earth communications relay, 47 light-years away. Vex watched Sarah work at the communications console with professional efficiency despite her injuries. Her fingers moved across the alien interface with practiced ease, adapting to Zephyrian technology as if she'd been trained for exactly this situation. Impressive, Vex commented. Most species need weeks to learn our systems. Sarah glanced up from her work. First rule of exploration: be ready to communicate with anyone, using anything. She returned to encoding her message. Besides, Zephyrian crystal matrix interfaces are actually quite logical once you understand the harmonic principles. The compliment made Vex's exoskeleton vibrate with pleasure. Most aliens considered Zephyrian technology primitive, all crystalline. Growth and harmonic resonance instead of the metal and plasma systems favored by other species. There, Sarah said, leaning back. Message encoded and ready for transmission. But Vex, once I send this, everything changes. The hegemony will know. I survived, and they'll know someone helped me. Are you certain you want to be part of this? Vex considered the question. His simple life as a salvage operator would be over the moment that signal transmitted. He would become a target, a player in galactic politics, someone with enemies and allies he had never chosen. But he thought about his family, about the transport ship that had died while people looked the other way, about Sarah trapped beneath that beam with death closing in around her. Send it, he said. The message burst outward from Kepler 7's antenna array. A compressed data packet containing Sarah's mission status, her attack coordinates, casualty reports, and most importantly, a detailed account of Vex Korath's rescue and assistance. It would take the quantum relay network approximately 36 hours to deliver the message to Earth Command. Sarah settled back in her chair, exhaustion finally showing on her face. Now we wait. What exactly are we waiting for? Vex asked. You'll see, Sarah said with a tired smile. Humanity doesn't abandon its friends. The first sign that something was happening came 18 hours later. The station's traffic control system detected a massive surge in quantum wake signatures at the edge of the system. Ships were arriving, lots of them, all broadcasting human identification codes. Vex stood in the station's observation lounge, watching as the fleet took shape against the stars. Sleek destroyers, massive battle cruisers, and support vessels arranged themselves in perfect formation. But these weren't the battered, utilitarian ships he expected from a military response. These vessels gleamed with fresh construction, their hulls bearing the insignia of the Earth Exploration Corps. "Diplomatic fleet," Sarah explained, joining him at the viewport. She was moving better now, supported by a Zephyrian medical brace that had adapted to her human physiology. "Admiral Marcus Webb's task force." I recognized the flagship. As if summoned by her words, the communication system chimed with an incoming transmission. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of a human warship. A tall man with silver hair and kind eyes appeared, wearing the uniform of an Earth admiral. "Captain Chun," the man said, relief evident in his voice. "Thank God you're alive. We received your transmission and came as quickly as possible." "Admiral Webb," Sarah replied, straightening to attention despite her injuries. "Thank you for the response, sir. But I wasn't alone in this. I'd like you to meet Vex Korath, the person who saved my life and made this communication possible." The Admiral's attention shifted to Vex, and the Zephyrian felt the weight of that human gaze. Admiral Webb studied him for a long moment, then nodded respectfully. "Mr. Korath, the Earth Exploration Corps owes you a debt that we can never fully repay. You risked your life to save one of our people, and in doing so, you may have prevented a war that would have cost millions of lives." Vex's throat sac vibrated nervously. "I only did what anyone should do, Admiral." Captain Chun was in distress. Admiral Webb's expression grew serious. "Mr. Korath, I've been in space for 30 years, and I can tell you that most people don't do what you did. Most people look away, call it someone else's problem, decide it's too dangerous to get involved. You made a different choice." The Admiral paused, consulting something off-screen. "Captain Chun's preliminary report indicates that the hegemony attack was deliberate and targeted. They knew about her mission, knew her route, knew what ship she was flying. That suggests intelligence infiltration at a very high level." Sarah stepped closer to the screen. "Sir, I believe we have a leak in the diplomatic corps. Someone fed the hegemony my mission parameters." "Agreed. And that's why we're not just here for a rescue mission." Admiral Webb's expression hardened. "The hegemony made a mistake when they attacked you, Captain. They revealed their hand too early, showed us that they're actively working to prevent peaceful cooperation between Earth and the free worlds." Vex felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. "Admiral, with respect, my people prefer to remain neutral in galactic conflicts, and we respect that preference, Mr. Korath, but the hegemony doesn't. Our intelligence indicates they're planning to move against all the independent worlds in this sector within the next 6 months. Kepler-7 station is on their target list." The words hit Vex like a physical blow. Kepler-7 was his home, the place he had rebuilt his life after losing his family. The station was populated by refugees, outcasts, and independents who just wanted to be left alone. None of them had the resources to resist hegemony occupation. Admiral Webb continued, "We're prepared to offer a mutual defense pact to any world or station that wants protection from hegemony expansion. Not conquest, not annexation, partnership. Equal partners working together for mutual benefit. And if we refuse?" Vex asked. "Then we respect that choice and withdraw. But we won't stand by and watch the hegemony enslave free worlds." The Admiral's voice carried absolute conviction. "Mr. Korath, you saved one of our people. That makes you family, whether you want to be or not, and we protect our family." The screen flickered as Sarah stepped forward. "Sir, what's our tactical situation?" 3 hegemony battle groups are moving toward this sector. ETA, 72 hours. They think you're dead, which gives us a significant intelligence advantage. But once they realize you survived and sent word to Earth, they'll accelerate there. Timeline. Vex looked out at the human fleet, trying to count the ships. "Admiral, How many vessels did you bring? Admiral Webb smiled grimly. 47 ships, Mr. Korath. But we're not here to fight if we can avoid it. We're here to make a statement. Over the next day, that statement became clear. The human fleet didn't take aggressive positions or make threatening moves. Instead, they began what Admiral Webb called humanitarian operations. Medical ships docked at the station, offering free treatment to anyone who needed it. Engineering vessels began upgrading the station's aging systems. Supply ships distributed food, medicine, and technology to the station's residents. But most importantly, they began broadcasting. Every hour, on every frequency, the human fleet transmitted a simple message. The Earth Alliance stands with the free worlds. Those who choose cooperation will find friendship. Those who choose aggression will find resistance. Vex watched these operations with growing amazement. The humans weren't acting like conquerors or even like rescuers. They were acting like neighbors, like people who genuinely wanted to help. When a human medic fixed the chronic pain in his lower arms that had bothered him for years, she refused any payment. When human engineers upgraded his ship's engine efficiency by 30%, they asked only that he pay it forward by helping someone else when he could. This is how you build alliances, Sarah explained as they stood in the observation lounge, watching human and alien workers collaborate on station repairs. Not through fear, obligation, but through genuine partnership. Can the hegemony? Sarah's expression darkened. They're about to learn that attacking Earth personnel has consequences. The hegemony fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 3 battle groups expecting to find a defenseless mining station ripe for conquest. Instead, they found 47 human warships arranged in defensive formation around Kepler-7, with more ships arriving every hour through quantum jump points. The confrontation, when it came, was brief. The hegemony commander, Regent Thax, opened communications with obvious anger. Human vessels, you are in violation of territorial boundaries. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Admiral Webb's response was calm and measured. Regent Thax, we are in neutral space at the invitation of Kepler-7 Station's Governing Council. We have no territorial claims here, but we will defend our allies. Allies? Thax's laugh was harsh. A collection of refugees and outcasts? These worlds have no strategic value. Every world has value, Regent. Every life has value. That's the difference between us. The battle that followed wasn't really a battle at all. The hegemony had expected to face a mining station with minimal defenses. Instead, they found themselves outnumbered and outgunned by one of Earth's most advanced fleets. After losing 2 destroyers to precise surgical strikes that targeted only weapons and engines, Regent Thax ordered a retreat, but the real victory wasn't military. Within hours of the hegemony withdrawal, 7 more systems in the sector requested Earth protection. Within a week, 15 independent worlds had signed mutual defense agreements. Within a month, the entire sector had been transformed from a collection of isolated, vulnerable outposts into a unified coalition of free worlds working together under Earth's protection. And at the center of it all was Vex Korath, the salvage operator who had made a simple choice to help someone in need. His name became known throughout the sector, not as a hero, but as the person who proved that individual actions could change the course of history. The last time Vex saw Sarah Chun, she was preparing to depart for Earth aboard Admiral Webb's flagship. Her injuries had healed, and she was eager to resume her diplomatic work with the new alliance. Thank you, she said simply as they stood in the docking bay, for everything. Vex's compound eyes reflected the lights of the bustling station around them. Captain, can I ask you something? Of course. When you sent that message to Earth, you mentioned me specifically. You could have just reported the attack, called for help for yourself. Why did you tell them about what I did? Sarah smiled. Because, Vex, the most important thing humans have learned in our expansion into space is that we're not alone out here. We succeed or fail based on the relationships we build with other species. When someone shows kindness to a human, shows courage on our behalf, that matters more than any strategic advantage or technological breakthrough. She paused, looking out at the human and alien workers collaborating throughout the station. You didn't just save my life. You reminded us that there are good people throughout the galaxy, people worth protecting, worth working with, worth calling friends. That's a gift beyond price. As Sarah's ship departed and Vex returned to his quarters, he reflected on how much his life had changed. He was no longer just a salvage operator, working alone in the asteroid fields. He was now a recognized member of the Earth Alliance, with friends and allies across dozens of worlds. His simple act of compassion had grown into something far larger than he had ever imagined possible. But perhaps most importantly, he was no longer alone. And neither were any of the free worlds that had chosen to stand together against those who would enslave them. The debt of stars, it turned out, was paid not in currency or favors, but in the simple recognition that all life has value, and that, protecting that life is worth any risk. In the end, that was the most human thing of all. Asterisk.